Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third and final webinar session for this series, Embracing Diversity and Dimensions of Identity, a focus on students with extensive supports need. We want to welcome everybody here, including our panelists. Just a heads up, just know that this session is being recorded and will be shared out at the end of, hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have it ready to be pushed out to all the registered participants, and feel free to share once you receive it, share with your friends and colleagues. My name is Lupita Holguin Rubio. I will be your facilitator today, and I'm joined here by our partners with Open Access, CCEL, and California Includes. So let's take the temperature of where we are today. It's getting hot out here in Imperial County. So if there was a burning sun there, I think I'm at 4 today. So feel free to drop in the chat. What is your mood today? How are you feeling today? We welcome all the fields today. We know that we're rounding out the school year for many of us. You know, graduation kind of makes us pivot and get into a different mindset for planning. For some of us, we get a little bit of reprieve, but we want to know how everybody's feeling today. So feel free to drop in the chat. What is your mood today based on our weather report here? We'll give you a few seconds to do that. And as you're dropping in the chat what you're feeling like, we want to remind everybody that our goal for this webinar series is really to provide opportunities to have our participants hear from others in the field, practitioners, parents, students, administrators, educators, and to empower you as you engage with us and to build our capacity, our collective commitment and capacity, and our advocacy to provide access and inclusivity for all of our students, particularly our students with extensive needs. Our agenda today will include really diving into opportunities to talk about communication and how to promote inclusivity and identifying barriers, breaking barriers, taking stock of best practices that you will be hearing about today, and thinking about what that might look like at your respective sites, districts, county offices, SELPAs, etc. So our focus today is building communication and how it promotes inclusivity. We're going to be joined here today by some panelists that will share some insights. But before we do that, let's talk about how we want you to engage. We value your participation. And so we have opportunities for you to chat in the chat box. Let us know your insights, connections that you're making, information that you want to share with our participants, with our groups. You have another option for question and answer. So we ask you to use the Q&A feature so that we can streamline the questions and be able to provide some specific answers to your specific questions. And then I believe somebody's going to be dropping in the chat a link to the slide deck with information for our respective projects, which I'm going to speak to in a little bit, as well as the questions that we're going to be reviewing and discussing throughout the day. Next slide, please. So let's begin with introductions. I will be your facilitator today. My name is Lupita Holguin Rubio. I'm a coordinator out of Imperial County, SELPA, with Project Muse, Improving Outcomes for Multilingual Students with Exceptional Needs. Today, our panelists will be Nicole Belanger. Nicole, did I get your name right?
Bellinger, yes.
Bellinger, thank you. She's a speech and language pathologist focusing on AAC and AT. And we also have Wendy Twelves, who is a parent and advocate with our daughter attending Eureka Union School District. And we have Jill McCann, who is an assistive technology specialist working with Open Access. And so we have prepared for you today this panelist and some questions to help address communication for the goal of inclusive practices. So with that, I want to give everybody just a final reminder of the different initiatives in the state designed to support our very specific needs under special education. So you'll see that all of our projects are going to be connected are working very intentionally and together to provide support statewide. But the next slide is really the one that I'm mostly proud of, because this project today, this webinar series, has been a collaboration with these 4 projects. Yours truly, Project Muse out of Imperial County, California Includes out of Sacramento County Office of Education, the CSEL and Open Access Project, both from Placer County Office of Education. And we're here to provide support at the state level, regional level, county level, and even at the LEA level, based on the specific needs that and requirements for your respective LEAs and regions. So we'll start off with introducing our project out of Imperial County. Again, our focus is supporting county offices, SELPAs, LEAs, district offices, etc., in support of all things English learners with disabilities. So our charge is to provide professional development and technical assistance and build the capacity of all these respective agencies, working in collaboration with the other state agencies to provide support both through IDEA and Title III to meet the needs of English learners with disabilities. Is Stephanie still in the house? Maybe she can introduce her project. I don't see her on here. No, okay, so I will do that. So California Includes is a project out of Sacramento County Office of Education. And their goal is to provide resources on inclusive education across the state of California with a commitment to bridging policy to practice. They're committed to have resources that are created for specific interest groups and share the information and messaging for all, limiting confusion and increasing the ability for everyone to know and understand how to build the educational settings that promote inclusivity and belonging. And then our next project that I want to highlight is the CSEL project, the California Coalition for Inclusive Learning. And I know we have the director joining us today, Shamron Coyle. Shamron, do you want to speak a little bit about your project?
So yeah, I am happy to share. We are the California Coalition for Inclusive Learning. We are a special educator workforce investment grant out of Placer County Office of Education. And we also work in partnership with CAST, the founders of Universal Design for Learning. And our project is all about breaking down barriers and embracing diversity and ensuring that every student has the opportunity to thrive. We provide professional development, training, coaching, and resources specific to Universal Design for Learning. And we provide universal resources that you can find on our project website, which is ccil.cast.org. Those are our universal resources. In addition to that, we're working very closely with several other county offices of education across the state, as well as directly working with districts and school sites that have landed on Universal Design for Learning as the mechanism to support their continuous improvement and their efforts toward building a more inclusive, accessible learning environment for all learners.
Thank you, Shamron. That's why I asked you to introduce it, because I can't speak to it better than you. And last but not least, we have our project Open Access. And I'm going to hand it over to Lori to speak to her project.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Lori from Open Access. So we are Open Access. We're a small but mighty team, and we are one of the statewide special education resource leads out of the Placer County Office of Education and Placer County SELPA, and we are one of the partners within the statewide system of support. Open Access is grounded in the foundational belief that with access to quality instruction, all students can engage, actively participate, and learn within inclusive settings. And what makes our project unique is that we highlight the importance of learning and participation for all through Universal Design for Learning, assistive technology, and augmentative and alternative communication. And the Open Access vision for UDL in California is to optimize access and engagement for all learners by leveraging the UDL framework to support equitable and inclusive learning environments. So be sure to connect with us on social media and check out our website that's filled with free universal resources for UDL, AT, and AAC.
Thank you, Lori. All of our projects are offer a training, professional development, support, technical assistance. All of our services are free. So we are happy to support you in any way. Know that we are working collaboratively and intentionally in providing support for all agencies at the statewide level. So please reach out to us. If we can't provide you with the service that you're looking for, we absolutely will point you in the right direction, which is exactly what we are trying to do as a statewide system of support agencies. So with that, we want to open our topic today on communication as a key for inclusive practices with a very short video clip that is being shared with us. Wendy, would you like to speak a little bit to the video as we begin our Q&A session?
This is when she was in first grade. And I was trying to share with school that she knew her ABCs. So then I took this video and shared it with the IEP team.
So as we are viewing the video clip, again, the goal here is for us to build our own capacity, awareness, expertise, and advocacy for students who, with extensive needs, who absolutely have the capacity and the skills to communicate. And so our role here is to understand how to best meet their needs and provide them with the appropriate supports that are going to help them show us what they know. So Vanessa, can you let it roll? We're going to watch, I think, about a minute or so of that video clip.
Here on the board. Oh, go all the way through until you find the letter. Yes. Okay, now we're gonna put at the next letter. Now you don't say anything, please. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, next letter. Yeah. Very good. Oh, yeah, it's on the second intro. Yes. Are you getting tired, Amber? Can you tell me what letter that is? D. Yes. Okay, last letter. Amber, if you don't know the letter, then I need you to put your hands on your tray, because you're just guessing right now. Look at the letter. If you don't know what it is, put your hands on your tray and don't guess. Just put your hands on your tray if you don't know the letter. Or hold still. Very still. Don't push their switch. Good girl.
Thank you. And with that, folks, we're going to begin our panel discussion with the first question. and I'm going to invite Wendy to start us off. Wendy, will you please share some success stories or strategies for navigating potential resistance or misconceptions surrounding the adoption of AAC or augmentative alternative communication devices and language diversity in educational settings?
My daughter has been known to shut down and refuse to use her device at school. When we were able to bring it home in a calmer, more comfortable and familiar environment, she took off using it. She would use it in crowded events at the dentist office and out shopping, and continued to shut down at school. She does not like people standing around watching her and talking about her device. She refuses to use it and when she's put on the spot and demanded to use it. We don't say to anyone, you need to talk or show me that you can use your voice. We can all decide who and where we speak. We are in control of what we say, who we speak to, and where we choose to speak. That respect should also apply to someone who uses a communication device. We started asking her which form of communication she wanted to use, putting the control back in her hands. And now she is choosing to text, but is refusing to talk to anyone at the moment, and that's her choice to make.
Go ahead.
There was a few misconceptions that we've run across. If a student isn't talking, that they can't learn. If a student is using AAC, it's the adult speaking and not the child. And if a child uses AAC, they won't start talking. And if a child can't cognitively speak, they won't be able to use AAC.
I think your sharing really helps me think about how important the context for learning is, familiarity with the adults that are providing the support and the actual tools to help facilitate and help the child feel more comfortable with engaging with and expressing his or her needs. I'm going to address the same question over to Nicole. Nicole, can you share a little bit of insight regarding success stories or strategies for navigating resistance and misconceptions around the adoption and use of AAC devices?
Absolutely. And Wendy, what you mentioned about some of those main misconceptions and kind of those beliefs. So I'm coming to this discussion as a speech pathologist, working in the schools. I primarily work with high school students. So that's kind of where my experience and thoughts will come from. But I think those misconceptions that you experienced with your daughter when she was young still kind of is present in the high school level. And so really working to kind of educate and kind of bring awareness to what AAC is and the capabilities of our students. So in my high school setting and some really awesome success stories, when I first started, our site had maybe like 2 or 3 AAC users, so it was really limited. And then over the past, 3 or 4 years, we've had some great success in raising that to almost 20 users. So staff trainings and just kind of that visibility. So a couple of stories I wanted to share. Our site really focused on the kind of functional skills piece, especially being in the high school, moving to the transition level. And so we have a coffee cart that myself and one of the ed specialists we created, which has been a great way for students to be able to utilize their communication in different environments, and also for school staff to see that they are capable and they have something to say in these really organic kind of interactions with people. And it's just been so exciting to see the boom, because not only are the students interacting with other adults, they're also interacting with peers, and that's, the ultimate goal is to form those connections. So I have a student who, when she came into high school, she was very quiet and very reserved. She can use verbal speech for communication, but very limited in what she would express. And so we looked into AAC to supports that could kind of help her with expression. And she has a dynamic display device. So she uses an iPad with a more robust app. She now is commenting, making jokes, asking questions, expanding her communication with access to those symbols and the word pairings. Like really has had an opportunity to show that she has a lot to say and has been given that kind of avenue to do so. So I think it's small steps and one at a time to really build that awareness. But now the teacher comes into my room and she's like, look what we did today, or look what we could program. And it's those little wins that I think start to kind of have that ripple effect and getting others excited and wanting to learn more. So that's just a little snippet of what my experience is, but it's been a very rewarding so far.
Awesome. We have a school, a local school, a classroom actually, who also has a coffee business. And I firsthand experienced how wonderful it is in all aspects, but just providing students an opportunity to use language authentically, giving them a purpose and an opportunity to negotiate with each other, using language with each other in the way that they feel most comfortable in using their supports and devices. But I think the key here, my takeaway here, is the opportunities to provide students a way to use language authentically. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that with us, with our group today. On that, we have another short video clip that we want to share. And Wendy, I'm going to hand it back to you for you to give us a little bit of context on what we're going to view next.
So this is my daughter, the one that showed the ABCs. And she's just turned 15 and she has an eye gaze. She's had that for about 4.5 years. And she's in the doctor's office trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
This morning. You have to keep getting your A's and B's this afternoon. We're gonna drop you off, but you don't need to get 8, right? Because you be at school, right? So we'll adjust for that. No biggie. But it looks like you're well and you're gonna get your phone. Absolutely. Now, you know what? Doctors are very busy, like I said. It's not a good idea to make a phone in the doctor's office waiting for the doctor. Just for instant messaging. But are you going to be focused on the doctor and asking questions like, do I need any shots? Or, like, don't you want to ask the doctor when the doctor's asking you questions and you're so busy texting that you're not paying attention to him? It'd be distracting. But what I can do is let you instant message after our appointment on our way to school, as long as you don't throw a temper tantrum about it. Turning it off once you get to school. Turn it off once you get to school. She won't be mad. She'll just turn it off because it's not appropriate at school. But it's fine with me on the way out of our appointment, down to our van, and driving back. Then once we get into the office, I'll turn it off. That's where I bring you in. When I bring you back to school, when I bring you back to the office, where should I bring you? Where should I bring you? Oh, you want me to bring you all the way to the classroom? You have to check in the office so that they know that you're back at school. It's a safety thing. Well, when you're at school, they need to know all the kids in our school so they know they're responsible to make sure that they keep everyone safe at school. And if they didn't know that you were at school, that's not good. So we need to check in the office so that they know you're at school. Office out or out of school. What did I say out? When I check you out at the office, I let them know taking you somewhere. They are not responsible for you during that time because I am taking you to a doctor's appointment. I did check you out, yes. They have a little paper, they have a clipboard in the front office, and I wrote your name and my name and what time I
Oh, Wendy, Vanessa, I think we can stop there.
keep track of it.
Okay, folks. I'm not sure if I'm having difficulty with sound. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, great. So we're gonna move on to question number 2. And Wendy, I'm gonna come back to you. How can parents and practitioners collaborate to advocate to ensure every student has a way to communicate what they think, feel, and know?
Communication is the biggest thing that will help with collaboration. We as parents don't know what is happening at school unless you tell us. The good, the bad, and how we can help. We all want the best for every child, and as long as we always keep this in mind and continue to communicate, then we ensure every student gets what they need. And we as parents, and I can't speak for all parents, but for me, want to be part of the team and want to help. And we know our child for the longest and the best, and we just want to be listened to.
Nicole, do you want to add to that? How you
Yeah.
collaborate maybe more with parents?
Yeah, definitely. Wendy, from what you've said and the parent side and coming into advocating, I think that's really some of the most, like one of the most powerful pieces. If you come to that table and have those discussions and you're expressing, kind of that you want to explore this, or like, what can we do to find new ways to help with communication? That's really like a huge piece of the puzzle, because not all parents are have exposure to what additional supports could look like. And so doing some learning and kind of being open to those discussions and learning as a team together to figure out what types of supports could be a great fit or really meet the needs of the student, because every student is so different and unique. And just starting to have those discussions. And from the speech pathologist side, it's really great information for us to know what they are capable of and what they are doing at home, because maybe we don't see that in the school setting, but then what can we do to help show or help with kind of bridging that gap for them to be able to do so at school. And then as from the provider piece, just being part of or open to the discussion of trying new things and kind of finding the perfect mixture. Because, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, we all come in with our kind of little nuggets of expertise or kind of what we're looking for. And then all together, we can really work to kind of have the best kind of discussion and trial and error. And Wendy obviously has been on a journey from starting with the switch to then the eye gaze, which is a very, and if for those of you, if you're not familiar, her daughter was controlling that entire interface with her pupils of her eyes. And so that's awesome that you were able to go from the switch, kind of more of a low tech access method to something really high tech and dynamic with a lot of language. And I know you probably had many conversations getting from point A to point B. So just kind of a testament to when you have that collaboration and that teamwork, what is possible.
We'll move forward because we actually do have somebody representing the statewide system of support, and that's Jill. So we'll be looping her in to questions 3 and 4 to give us that lens as well. So moving on to question number 3. And we'll start off again with Wendy. What are some of the ways to integrate augmentative alternative communication or AAC instruction and assistive technology into classroom learning and support systems?
Making sure that each student has self-advocacy words available to them. Sharing news from school to home and home to school, having the student share that using a step-by-step. And communicating with the student in their own language. That's helped a lot. Teaching other children how to communicate with the nonverbal child and how their system works. And communicating, creating a communication access card for the students so that everyone working with them knows their language and how they communicate.
Nicole, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Wendy, when you said the communication access card, I love that piece to kind of tack on to whatever they're using and kind of acknowledging this is my toolbox or this is the different ways that I communicate, and please honor that. Additional ways to kind of integrate AAC supports and, whatever level that might be. Core boards are always a really great kind of starting point, and then open access does have a lot of great resources that we can share at the end, free core boards and whatnot. A lot of modeling, some of the curriculum, like Unique Learning System, News to You, has the symbols with the word orthographic pairings already built in and already have accompanying core boards to the activities. So a lot of it's kind of already done in that regard for kind of adding in additional communication supports into some of that structured classroom learning. And then continuing to just provide multiple types of AAC support. So a core board or maybe a switch, as we saw, or different ways to kind of interact, and just kind of the exposure piece, I think, and then getting to explore is really important for the students and staff as well to have access to learning and increasing their confidence because they are a huge part of the puzzle as well.
Right. Training is key, right? Training and familiarity with these devices and resources is absolutely key in order for kiddos to have effective use and access to these resources and be able to communicate clearly and comfortably. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to Jill. Speaking of training and support resources, Jill, what's your insight in terms of addressing question number 3? Tell us what you know. Share your knowledge with us.
Well, excuse me. When really thinking about AT tool implementation and looking at the entire classroom, and I'm also looking at it through a universal design for learning lens, meaning, how can we really provide and offer choices and tools that are built into the classroom? And I know students have specific AT needs and AAC needs, but what are we doing in the environment for all students to have some choices? We can also be looking at barriers that the students are experiencing. So we can really kind of hone in on some of the activities and tasks that are happening in the classroom, whether it's communicating during collaborative time, our participation. We can really start to break down those tasks and say, see and look, where are the barriers occurring for the student? And are there any AT supports that we can have in the classroom that can support those access points? We also know that AT includes a range or a continuum of tools, from no-tech tools to high-tech tools. So we want to make sure that we have a variety of those accessible. We can even think of it as there's something that I like to share. It's the strategy crosswalk, and we do have a document that we're going to share with you that has some of the resources that we're sharing today. And the strategy crosswalk, we can think about AT as a way to engage in a strategy as well. So let's say a student is wanting to participate in, let's say, a math activity, and they're manipulatives, but the student has a physical impairment. There is a digital or an electronic way to access virtual manipulatives. So we need to be looking at that continuum of no tech to higher tech, if that makes sense. Also, someone mentioned training earlier. Training is so important, not just for the student, but for staff, for parents. That training component is really critical. I think that's, yeah, and just in terms of AT, having the student be able to have plenty of opportunities to practice with the AT, to get that exposure to the AT in order to learn how to use it. One resource we have at Open Access as well is called the My AT Backpack. It's just a one-page document, and it's great for students who are ready to self-advocate and really have that ownership of the AT that they need to use, but it can also be used by a teacher or parent. And it's a great form that shows what their AT is, what they use it for, when they use it, where do they get help when they need help. So that's a great resource. We also have an implementation worksheet, which is based in best practices, which come out of QIAT, which is the Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology. And so our implementation worksheet includes all the critical items that a team really needs to look at when they are considering and creating maybe an implementation plan for a specific student's AT. And so that's on our document as well. There's a link to that.
Thank you, Jill.
Sure.
I think that the common factor here is training is key. Training of the teachers, training of the students, and progress monitoring to see which are the most effective tools, what's working, what's not working, and making the appropriate adjustments. Again, the goal being to ensure that the student is familiar with the resource and is able to utilize it to communicate effectively. So we have one final question, and we're going to circle back to Wendy. Wendy, in your experience, what community resources are available to help schools and others understand the importance and right to have access to AAC and assistive technology?
We found a number of different resources from parent support groups, AAC specialists, but the primary resource that we've had throughout our school experience is the support providers, the speech teachers, OTs, AAC specialists, who have been the most supportive in helping guide our journey.
Thank you, Wendy. Nicole, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Yes, I would agree, or I would say that those who have more of a focus in the communication piece, or, assistant, like the AT specialist, because that's kind of that huge umbrella, and then you have your speech pathologist and AAC specialists that focus really specifically on the communication sub piece. But some districts may have it under one title versus another. So there's definitely people that are knowledgeable about technology and how it can support communication and access to the educational setting. And then there are a lot of free kind of training. So if parents or school teams want to learn more about something or have questions, there's a plethora of free trainings out there, and kind of material to read through and kind of familiarize yourself. But I would agree that at the school level, though, like the SLP and the AT specialist or AAC specialist would kind of be the kind of main person who could provide some of those trainings and answer some of those more specific questions. But I do know as students age out from that transition program, in California, you age out at 22. There's regional center and other places that can support with getting access to what you need once you have left the schools. And then also a medical provider if you have questions. There's a lot of places that you can go for support. It's kind of like a journey. You got to figure out where to go, but there's a lot of things available if you advocate and ask for it.
Jill, what's your take on community resources that might be available to help support parents, schools, and ultimately students?
Yeah, I think, in terms of community resources, I definitely second what Nicole was mentioning. In terms of the right to have access to, in part of that question, the right to have access to AAC and AT, it kind of leads me to want to share and make sure everyone knows that an amazing resource just came out from the U.S. Department of Education, and they have not released guidance on AT in a very long time. And so there is a letter to colleagues that came out, but there's also a document called Myths and Facts Surrounding Assistive Technology Devices. And I have to say, as an AT specialist who's been doing this for over 20 years, I'm really, really impressed with the document that they came up with. They were talking to some really great people and resources to put this together, but I think it addresses so many big questions that IEP teams have in terms of some of these tough questions that sometimes come up in IEPs when that IEP is being developed, and also addresses a lot of these myths that are happening. And I'm hoping that the more administrators who read this and IEP teams have access to this, that we'll start to really be able to support our students better and have really effective IEPs in the regards of addressing the AAC and AT. So I would definitely direct that. It is available in English and Spanish. And we do have that link on the document that we share.
Great. And I think Leah dropped it in the chat as well.
Great.
Wendy, we're going to come back to you because I think you wanted to share some additional resources with our group.
Thank you. First, for outside of school, for parents, there's the Bridge School. And then in Placer County, there's Warmline and CTEC and CAC through SELPA. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with our group. And now I'd like to open it up to our panelists who additionally are statewide system of support panelists, hosts and panelists, for any additional comments or questions related to our discussion here today. Thoughts, insights, highlights, resources that you want to share, we're going to open it up to our group here. Feel free to unmute and share.
I know in the chat, I put some resources from Open Access, and Nicole talked a little bit about the aided language. And I don't know if you want to give kind of a quick synopsis of what that is and some of those resources that we have on Open Access, the core boards.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of different kind of strategies when implementing aided communication supports, and kind of the most prevalent is, you might hear it, aided language modeling, aided language stimulation. It's all synonymous, which is basically when you are interacting with the student as you're speaking, you're modeling what that looks like. So a core board has those kind of those core words, which make up about 80% of what we say. So they hold a lot of power in them, and there's not that many of them. So we have our core words, and having that core board, you can use that to kind of model. Like if you were saying go, that could mean like go, like I want you to go, or I want to go, or giving a command like go, like start the buzzer or whatnot. So these core boards, Open Access has different versions of 20, 40, and 60 icons, are a great way to kind of pair. And then as you're speaking or kind of just interacting authentically, just kind of pointing as you're going to words that kind of match what you're saying. And they're not super specific, like not a name or something like that. It's very general, but just showing the student that this is how you could use this word in this kind of communication interaction. So there's a ton of free stuff on the Open Access website that has been developed as part of the grant. And then there are additional trainings as well. There's the AAC Foundations training, which is great for anyone who wants to learn more, and it does deep dive more into the different strategies and just general information on AAC, and if you're interested in learning more about that. But yeah, that was the long expression description of that, but hopefully that was helpful.
That is extremely helpful. Thank you, Nicole. Anybody else from our panelists and hosts that would like to comment or connect to some of the responses that were shared today? As we round out our third and final webinar for this series.
I think one other thing I'd love Jill to highlight is our AT Flip Kit. If you just want to talk a little bit about that, and we can put the link to that in the chat also.
Great, thanks, Leah. So yes, we actually have 3 flip kits on the Open Access website, one for UDL, one for AT, and one for AAC. And in terms of the AT flip kit, we have it designed in a way where you can choose an area of need. For instance, communication and collaboration, reading, writing, math, executive functioning, access. There are a number of categories. And then you can see specific tools kind of pop up onto the screen. And those are curated by not only the Open Access team, but we have talked to and gotten input from our leads all across California on the tools that they are using in the classrooms, and also from specialists in the tools that they are using. So it's very, very specific to education. And we've got a lot there for you to browse through, and Leah just put that on the in the chat. A lot of great resources to look through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, folks. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments, we want to thank you for joining us today. We want to offer you just a minute or so to give us some feedback using the survey link. If somebody can please drop that in the chat to facilitate that information. We greatly appreciate that. Again, we want to thank you on behalf of our respective projects, Open Access, CSIL, California Includes, and Project Muse out of Imperial County, SELPA. We want to thank you for joining us, for your participation. If you've been with us since our first webinar, thank you so much for following us throughout this series. Stay connected. I think we have one final slide there with a thank you that will give you access to our projects. Oops, maybe a quick refresh, Vanessa. We'll give you access to our respective websites and projects. Please feel free to reach out to any one of us, all of us, with any questions that you may have related to our focus. Well, maybe not. So again, thank you again for joining us. Give us your feedback. Your feedback is really important. We take it into consideration as we work towards providing support at the statewide level. So thank you again.